Hello. Welcome to the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show.
Welcome to a podcast show about stuff. It's the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Here's your host, Stephen Davis.
Hello. Get your official products such as this marvelous t-shirt that I'm wearing, or this great coffee mug that I'm drinking out of, and many other products with the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis logo at https://www.zazzle.com/store/a-stuff-store, and make sure you get your 15% discount today. Hey, it's that time again. Time for another episode of the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Today, my guest is a person whose hair products are familiar to most Black women across the United States and overseas. Joe Dudley, a co-founder of the DudleyQ Plus brand, which includes Dudley products and Dudley Beauty School system. He was one of the world's most sought after entrepreneurial masterminds. Welcome, Mr. Dudley. How are you doing today? Now tell me, where were you born at?
North Carolina.
What part of North Carolina?
Aurora,
Where is that near?
Greenville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. Greenville. Okay. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
10.
And what were your parents' name?
Gilmer and Clara Dudley.
Now, tell me something about your parents. Talk about your parents.
Oh, wow. I was really hard worker and a teacher. When I was a teacher, she taught all of us, taught us to read, to write, and to do all those different things that you expect of a mama. And she was a discipline. She was just a beautiful woman.
And your father?
And hard work. He worked. He set an example for us. He showed us how to do different things, but he worked us every day. We worked there because we had workers early in the morning. We had to milk the cows. You had to just feed the hogs and feed the chicken and do all those things. And that made a big difference in him and my mom and dad was able to feed us and push us in school when the weather was good for us to do different things. So it was exciting time, and that was outstanding for us to be able to do it. I think that's the reason why we were able all to go to college, finish college, and make it through life.
Now, let me tell you also that even though I wasn't born there, I grew up in Fayetteville, at least for high school. I went to high school in Fayetteville, North Carolina, so I'm familiar with that area.
Wow.
How was it growing up with your 10 brothers and sisters?
It was good. It was hard work, and we all had to find different things to do and to be able to play. That was great. I think it really and fun. So that was
Exciting times. Now, where did you go to elementary school?
almost almost all my school was an hour, North Carolina born. I was there all the way through until I went off to college.
What was the name of your elementary school?
Yes.
Okay. And I would imagine at that particular period of time, it was segregated.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Mouse never had a white teacher. All teachers were black. And really never had one until I went to college. Yeah, finished college. It was quite segregated. And we didn't, because we hadn't seen anything different.
Now, you left elementary school and you moved on to junior high school. What was the name of your junior high school?
Matter of fact, the same all the way through. Same place.
Same place?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that through high school or just elementary school and junior high school?
All of it was through the same school, and I don't even think we changed building.
Now, describe from what you could see at that particular time, and how did you feel in terms of the difference between the schools that you were going to and the schools that white folks went to? What was the biggest differences?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the students in the white school had up-to-date information. It was just different. Matter of fact, it didn't go into the building or anything like that. It was over really segregated. And I think they was able to get a better information and all those things that was more update. One thing was big, different. They had basketball, they had all those games.
Were you part of, when you went to high school, were you part of the sports scene? Were you on the football team? Were you on the basketball team?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't part of the sports.
What kind of extracurricular activities did you do?
We didn't have basketball at this time that I was in the school. It was just different, but it didn't bother me too much because I found I made the best of it. I did the best I could with what I had.
Did you have to, because you said your father was into farming, was your schedule such that the school schedule revolved around the harvesting time?
Yes, I think so. We went to school many times because it was raining. We didn't have to go to school every day. We didn't do that. I didn't do that. We had to take the crops in, time to take the crops in. That was no school. So we just had to work around the farming, the time to harvest crops. We could go to school that time, and we had to, there were many times school was in 3 or 4 weeks before we got a chance to go in school in the classroom. So we had to find a way to get schoolwork. We found somebody would give us the information that we could be able to do the course.
Now, what I do want to do at this particular period of time, because I hadn't introduced him, joining you is Dr. Willie Bailey. Are you from North Carolina also?
No, I'm a native of the state of Mississippi.
That's where you grew up at, in Mississippi?
Yes, indeed. Grew up in Mississippi, went to Tougaloo College outside of Jackson, the same school. My classmate was Benny Thompson, who was chairing up the committee in Congress there. And I went from there to the University of Illinois. And my career started out in teaching, college teaching. I came back to North Carolina teaching A&T. I lived not too far from Mr. Dudley, but we traveled in different cycles. So roughly around 1994, I left teaching and I joined Mr. Dudley, and he and I began to build some businesses and things of that nature. So we've been working together since 1994, so that we had a terrific ride through that situation. Mr. Davis, one thing, we talked about Mr. Dudley's education. It's to show the tenacity and how he over his ability to triumph over adversity. See, in fact, Mr. Dudley was labeled mentally retarded in school. And so something happened, even happened in his life that triggered him, where he decided that he would study and make up grades, and it was a turnaround. Because like he said before that, because they had labeled him mentally retarded, he just set aside to have fun. But a critical event happened in his life that turned him around, that made the Joe Dudley you see now. And I don't know if he wants to mention that. I don't want to spill all his business, but unlike his other sisters and brothers, he had a tremendous struggle in education. And he's a testimony to Aljo winner, build $1 million businesses. You talk about a triumph over adversity. This gentleman is a walking testimony to that.
Now, so that I'm clear, what was it that triggered the change?
I'll let him tell.
A smart boy took my girlfriend away from me, and I was having fun in school. One day, I was in the school. My girlfriend came. I was excited about that, and she said, "Look, but it's not you." I said, "Why?" She said, "I want smart kids, and you're a nice guy. I really like you, but I got to think about my future." And I said, "Okay, that really frustrated me. I thought it set me back, but it set me up." And so that really got me, set me on the right track. Because this boy taking my girlfriend from me because he was smart, and I was not. So I had to get smart. So I was too late then, but too late for me to catch that. Joe, you got to get to work. So I got my sister and brother's book. And when you don't know how to read or write, that's really hard. But I had to practice, learn a lot of things I needed to know, but I was at about 10th grade and older age. If they'd been in the classroom with your sister, that was very difficult. But I did well. I worked hard. And I got up in the last 2 years of my school. I became really good.
Now tell me, during that particular period of time, I remember reading that you start selling for the Fuller Brush Company.
Yes, I was too and I saw a guy on the street. And I asked him, "Why can't I do what you're doing?" He was selling Fuller product. So then he told me, "So you go up that Maker Street, they got a location that you can get started selling product, get to work there." He told me. And went to the office and gave me a bag. I got $10 and you get a kid product like what I got. And I got, for the $10, I got started, and it was pretty tough for me. But to do that on my spare time, I checked that into a full-time business. And the first day I got on the field was.
The reason why I'm asking you in terms of the Fuller Company is not so much for the Fuller Company itself, but how did that help you in terms of your assertiveness and your presentation to people?
Full of product company, because I started selling. I learned to get rid of some of the shine, and that really helped me tremendously. In people, a lot of determination because I learned how to deal with objection. People stole me and some were coming at me. Let me show you how to do this, young man. That was really helpful. I just think that everybody, one of the learning anything about business should go direct help for me. I don't think I would have been able to build a business and being able to hire people, to teach people to do things. That was so beautiful for me. It was the best education I think I could get by dealing with people. I think that was the biggest part of my success.
I remember that I used to, when I first got started, I used to work for Household Finance. If you remember Household Finance.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I became a manager at Household Finance, they would have me do all kinds of reports and stuff that at the time, I'm young and I didn't see the value in terms of doing some of the stuff that they had you to do. Later on in life, I discovered that I was doing those things that they taught me that I just took for granted. I think that is a model for younger folks to understand that some of the things that you learn things, but some of the things that you do that you think is not important, later on in life, you discover that it's important to your psyche and your thinking. Dr. Bailey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm sitting here and marveling because the label of Mr. Dudley being retarded was because he had a serious speech impediment, which made him extremely shy. So he just didn't participate in school. So he's not by any means a retarded, but it appeared because back in those days, they didn't have ways to test students and find out. Because so that the appearance of being retarded was because he had a serious speech impediment. And that carried on over into the direct sales, but that's where he got help at because he would go in and the people would have to pronounce the names of the words because he had a serious stuttering problem, like President Bush. But he kept practicing and working on that and working through that. And then it traces back to his mother who told him, Joe, you slow, and we know you're slow, and the teachers know you're slow. But when the slow one gets it, he got it. So he kept that in his mind and he kept moving forward and making steps and making progress. He's used that and he's helped so many people with that. So he said there was an advantage to him not being able to do that, but he was able to turn that into an advantage. And I think that dovetails with what you're talking about. But he's a living example of how you always look for an advantage and make use of your advantage.
Yes, very much. Now, you worked for Fuller for a time. When in your mind did it come to the fact that, okay, it's time to move on to something else? I done this, I mastered this, I did good at this, but I need to do something on my own. And what precipitated that?
I think that I always have felt that I was working for myself. That was from the very beginning to the very end. I've never felt that I was working for me. So you were working for you and not for somebody else because you get a paycheck, you get a salary.
One of the things that I say to myself and I think to myself, especially since I did a lot of research in terms of my own family background, and like you, our families were, after they got out of slavery, were farmers. And truth be told, if people understood that farmers were entrepreneurs, they had to pay their bills, they had to plan for the next year. Everything that major corporations do now, they had to do, but they just wasn't given the credit because it was considered the bottom of the heap. But if you look at it in the cold light, you understand that they were just as much of entrepreneurs as any entrepreneur today. And it means that you, Mr. Dudley, you got your first training on being entrepreneur from your father.
Yeah.
Important point.
Mr. David, let me make a comment on that. His father was also explicit in that regard, in that I think it was 3 girls and 8 boys, okay? And his father told his mother, I don't want any of my boys hired out to anybody else. They have to learn how to make their own living. Okay. And that philosophy carried over to if you meet the family members now, pretty much all the boys are stepping forward and wealthy, to be honest with you. But I think it went back to that philosophy, that parent telling them, I don't want my boys, they have to learn how to make their own living. And that became, so there was no way around that. Not only did he set the example, but he explicitly made it a family philosophy that they had to be able to make their own living and they could not be hired out in a case like that. So he ingrained it in. So I think that's very instructive in terms of parenting, the image we put in that child's mind and how it can grow. And so that legacy, that father said, I don't want my boys hired out. They have to learn to make their own living. And he set the example. He did that. He had many businesses. But it's also carried over to several generations. So you'll find that 3 or 4 generations down the line, those Dudleys are still self-employed and coming off of that philosophy.
You decide to go out on your own, and you and your wife decide to found a company. What year did you jumped out there in the water?
67 when we came back to Greensboro.
Yeah, I came back to Greensboro. But one thing, all the time that I was going to college and I was in the South, my living, and I was doing good at doing that. That's what then I think that was changing, and the lifestyle that I made. It taught me how to be independent. So that was the big thing, I think, was we had to follow house to house, getting people to buy our goods. So I think that was pretty much basic, teaching people that our team up to really working together, how it works together made a tremendous difference. So I think that was the way I worked, the way I did. The dreaming that we had made the difference.
What made you decide to choose the hair care product cosmetology line of business that you did? What was your process in terms of deciding that that would be where you would put your stake in the ground at?
Well, it made me do, I think the determination that I had to do something. I think anything I had put my mind to it, and anything that came up, I would do well with it. So I don't think I had the time to do this, to think about this. I had to go to work and make some money. What I did, I worked extremely hard. That was my plus. I worked, I studied hard. I played hard. I made good. That was the most important thing to me. I had to do extremely, work hard and do well. I did that. I look back at the things that I did that were given to me. I am really happy about it because I worked extremely hard.
About how many, at the height of the business, about how many people did you employ?
His payroll was $1 million a month at one time, just the payroll.
Just the payroll.
Yes, sir.
How did you find it during that particular period of time of raising capital that you needed to continue on and expand your business? Was it easy or was it very hard?
It was still challenging and rely on. Well, I figure out how to find a way to every man. He must decide whether he gonna take the highway or drop down the lowway. I decided that I was going the highway, and there was an advantage. Always was an obstacle. And I felt like I could always find a way. So it wasn't, so to speak, with I could always find a way. So that was for me. I had to find a way. So that's what I did. Easier way to make it happen. So that was a real problem for me.
Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, when he's talking, I'm just so excited because Mr. Dudley's philosophy and what he's done in business, when you ask about money, for example, but I'm looking coming in, but I want to go back to his being in business. I think this will help people. Every time there was a crisis, his fortitude, he turned it into an advantage. For example, he had decided to get out of the business with Mr. Fuller. He got frustrated with Mr. Fuller and decided he was going to go raise hogs and he's going to quit Fuller Products. Okay, and then Mr. Fuller, because of his admiration for Mr. Fuller talked to him and convinced him to become a person who would help him to raise people. So the Mr. Dudley you see now came out of that fortitude. His philosophy became then of not just business, but my mission is to help people. Mr. Dudley was perhaps the top recruiter for the company and business leader. And the business person he is. Indeed, Mr. Dudley so personified that if you would actually see Mr. Fuller, you would see this Mr. Dudley, because Mr. Dudley said, look, what I do is everything Mr. Fuller taught me. I follow without reservation, and that's how I become successful. So then we move into how raising capital. Because of Mr. Fuller's training, they had a strong religious background, so that his philosophy was, I follow the philosophy of Jesus Christ and build my business, which means is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, so that he felt through prayer and hard work that God would always give him what he needs, so that he didn't worry about a lot of times raising money. He would pray to God. In his book, he talks about how in Chicago, he talked to God walking down on the lake there, and how God sent a lady to him with $50,000. But so that he used that, but in doing that, Mr. Davis, he was able to create something bigger than a business. He created a movement so that his customers were not only people who bought his products, but they were also supporters and investors in his business. And that solved a lot of his problems. And so when he and I teach in business class, we teach people to look, you have to go beyond just trying to build a business, just to sell a product. You want to create a movement where you're helping people solve their problems. And then they will support your business and they won't just be customers. And in that regard, he was able then to, in many cases, to move around the system where he couldn't get money because the community helped him, because he had a movement where he was helping them to change lives. And he's created billions of dollars for other people to become millionaires and things of that nature. And that was the key to how he did it. And that's the key, I think, in our communities. We need to go beyond just me making a buck. How can I create a movement and help everybody so everybody can have a little bit more? And that'll solve a lot of your problems.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. That's a great moving forward. But it also, again, I want to highlight that it falls within the theme of my show, progress despite obstacles. All businesses have obstacles. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, green, or yellow, but some have more obstacles than others. And
it's attitude, any obstacle, there's always a way around. There's always a right way to do it. And so he didn't know, he would tell us, I don't know the how, but we'll pray and God will give us the direction. There's always a way. So his whole company had the attitude, they stated or spoke, we'll find a way, we'll find a way. So example, they were in LA on a mission, and they didn't have money. The old companies out there on a meeting in LA, and I guess maybe 200 people. They didn't have enough money to get back home. So they prayed over, and then they decided, they went out in the community and sold, they had one product, and sold enough of that one product to get back. And there are many examples of that. They always found a way. And that was his attitude. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. There's always a way. And that became the whole philosophy of the company, and that became the fortitude that still carries this company on.
Now, talk about when the two of you all got together and you all started doing business together. How did that come out?
Actually, I was in education. I spent my career in education for about 20 years. Business schools, head of business schools and business professor. So in 1994, I decided to move out. I wanted to having to graduate kids to try to find jobs. I wanted to go out and be able to create jobs so we could hire our own people. In fact, it came out of a challenge to my students saying, Dr. Bill, you always tell us what we can do. Why don't you go out and do it? I took the challenge, okay, I'm gonna go out. And I figured out I had pretty much had developed a little nest egg and things like that. So I figured I could sustain myself for 3 or 4 years before I had to go back, try to find a job. But I left, and just by chance, Mr. Dudley and I actually lived in the same community about half a mile apart, but we didn't travel the same circle. And so I went to a meeting at his place, and I took some students out there because I was always trying to keep kids and educate them. And I sort of had a chance to witness and hear his philosophy, what he was doing. And so he recognized me, and then we chatted for a few moments, and he said, look, why don't we team up and do this together? Because I want to create jobs. It's taken 3 years with his resources and my contacts and know-how with students in university. We were able to team together in less than 3 months. We were hiring kids for $25,000 at that time, and we trained them for 6 months or 9 months. And another buddy of ours, John, we spent about 45 days out in the field recruiting, and we brought about 25 college kids at historical black school. And then over time, we probably hired 200 or 300 of them. And that became a program that we created in a company called the Collegiate Entrepreneurs. And that allowed me to meet my mission. And again, it was God saying, look, I don't have time for you to go do your thing. I need you to come together. So that it didn't take us long. We had a meeting of the minds. He said, look, I got the resources. I can create the job. You got the know-how. And so we just came together. And that was like in 1994. And about 27 years later, we're still doing it.
What are some of the products that either manufacture or you sell?
With the company right now, his daughters each one have manufacturing companies, but the Dudley company itself, we had about over 160 different products, hair care products. But there was also some household products, from relaxers to hair conditioner, shampoos, facial materials, foot care products, things of that nature. Another big was education. He set up a university, probably one of the major universities for hair care, in fact, premier universities here in America, and also 2 or 3 in Africa, Brazil, and other places. He had a bunch of them in South Carolina. He's educated over 30 or 40,000 all over the world and helped them to build their businesses. He had the salespeople in the United States, actually 17 foreign countries. He was #1 publisher of hairstyling books in 24 different languages around the world, premier of that. But the world leaders education. So a Dudley degree and certificate. You can go to this salon pass around the country now. Even he and I were in Japan and Malaysia, and somebody came. I want to see Mr. Dudley. They were one of his graduates all around the world, outside the world. But so his product was both education, but his real product was to show our people how they can be self-sufficient. And his movement was he had a product that he would never put in the stores. It would only be for the cosmetologists so that they could make a living out of stores. He would go out of business because they could become job makers. And that was part of the legacy of Mr. Fuller. And that was the movement that kept him strong, where even today, there are thousands of cosmetologists who know and prosper because of, and also several companies that spin off from his training, people who and be self-sufficient. That before he would ever put his product in the store to sell it.
Did you all know, I forgot Bernice's last name, Bernice and her son Carlton from the big show, they used to do a show in Philadelphia every year?
Yes.
Yeah, Carlton and Bernice were very good friends. So I remember them talking about from that when I was dealing with them.
Yeah, she knows me, and she worked extremely hard. She was finding that was a real plus, the big show.
The big show. I remember it well. Let me give you the last word of what you want to say, particularly in terms of young folks who want to follow in your footsteps.
I think #1, they need to really work hard, but study hard and focus on this one thing I do, forgetting that behind me and move forward. But I think we, as a farm boy, we plant the seed, but we dig up the seed before it germinates and get a chance to grow. Now, I think the thing that was good for me, I would stay. Sometimes I would, coming up, I used to sit and read for hours in one sitting. And just think about what do you want? Why you want that? When you get that, what you gonna do with it? I try to burst things all the way to the end myself all night long to finish doing something that I felt worthwhile. So important to do that I can do it. I saw a 6 hour reading. Yeah, sit down and read for 6 hours. I'm pushing now. It was difficult. I just keep on. We believe that this can be done, and write it down what you want. You just gotta work with yourself over and over again. It's the power within you. The God is in you.
You know, whenever you run into a problem, if they get that attitude, I am, I can, I will.
Yes, that's a very powerful attitude. Things get tough, but it always will. Going uphill, but don't you quit. You ever come like this, I can do this. And that powerful attitude, you can do it now.
Ask you a question, and then I'm going to have to end. Do you have a copy of your book right there that you can show people? What is it called?
Walking by faith, I am, I can, I will.
And how long ago was it put out?
Copyright 1998.
Just hold it up in front of you all. So I thank
see
you
it?
all for so much for being on the broadcast today. Dr. Bailey and Mr. Joe Dudley, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Thank you so much. And that's it for the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Join us next week for another wonderful episode. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed this show about stuff. See you next time.
Branded gifts for the holidays, birthdays, or just because. Visit us at www.thebreakstore.com. Hit the right black Get in Touch button.